Today on Mondays with Mo, we're going to be talking about a more recent release. In fact, it's a game that hasn't actually released at all. It's Ironsight, which is available as a free-to-play open beta right now over on just the PC. Ironsight's a game that I've been wanting to talk about for quite some time now because it's kind of good. It's actually really good. It's probably one of the better free-to-play shooters on the market right now, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be popular or that you're going to be interested in it, and that's quite a bit about what we're going to talk about today. So let me start by describing Ironsight as quickly as I possibly can, and I mean this in the best possible way. Ironsight is essentially Call of Duty Black Ops 2 if it was released specifically for the PC. It has a lot in common with the Call of Duty franchise as well as just other popular Twitch shooters, but Ironsight never really feels like a copycat to me. It never feels like just a Call of Duty clone, if you will. Again, it feels like a game that was built from the ground up for PC, meaning that it plays better, in my opinion, than any of the Call of Duties have on PC for a very long time. And throughout the rest of its design decisions, its level design, its weapons, its characters, Ironsight feels a lot more like a love letter to Twitch shooters over the years, delivered in a really spectacular way. I mean, the levels themselves are just really well designed, which is the first massive checkmark on my list for when free-to-play first-person shooters don't suck, they have great level design. Most free-to-play first-person shooters fall into the trap of very simplistic choke point, connecting to a choke point type level design. Black Squad is notoriously awful for this, and I didn't understand any of the hype surrounding that game because it didn't do anything special, and it had really awful level design. When I played it, I was like, oh my lord, even if there is anything redeeming going on here, weapons or whatever, I can't find it because I just keep being shoved down these same three corridors. Ironsight is not that. Ironsight's levels feel memorable, they feel distinct, and they even have a bit of a trick up their sleeve. They have transformations, if you will, some that are automatically triggered throughout the course of the match and some that can be manually triggered by players. For example, the desert map will actually see a massive sandstorm that knocks some bits and pieces of the environment over, creating new routes. There's a level with a sort of cargo container ship in the center of it that actually moves from one side to the next, actually creating and closing off new routes. There's another level that has a sort of raising indoor pad, if you will, that also opens up more routes and gives players an additional height advantage, the higher ground, if you will, and you'll find that throughout the experience. The levels in this game are really good. They're memorable, they're easy to learn, and they just feel distinct. They feel original. But, again, I want to point out that some of my favorite levels in Ironsight so far feel to have small bits and pieces of some of my favorite Call of Duty maps ripped right out of them and popped into these new and original environments. And that's the part of Ironsight that I think has clicked with me most on an emotional level, is it really does feel, time and time again, like it's that love letter, if you will. And it also strips a lot of things from other first-person shooters. Running with a knife allows you to run faster. Everyone always has a knife. And as a whole, there's just a lot of good game design here. I specifically like the way they handle a lot of their score streaks. So they do score streaks. The very basic sort of single missile that you would see in Call of Duty, right? You traditionally would just open up a pad and shoot that at the ground. In Ironsight, you actually have to manually fire the missile into the air. So you have to get outdoors, expose yourself, fire it into the air, and then guide it back into the ground. It's small touches like that that breathe a little bit more personality into Ironsight's approach to the Twitch shooter, and also just make for smart decisions. Like, why not make a very powerful score streak like that, which can be earned very early on, a little bit more risk and reward? I really do appreciate the decision they've made with that. Now, when it comes to the game's free-to-play systems, they've actually monetized it fairly well. While there are one too many currencies for my liking, the reality is you can play a lot of Ironsight and never have to pay a penny. There's a lot of cosmetic options here that drive the game's premium currency purchases, and the weapons themselves can be unlocked in multiple variants. So permanent, temporary, which you can get from crates, allowing you to basically use like a special tier weapon for 3 days. These weapons usually just have a different appearance to them. Custom reload animations, which are pretty slick. Or you can actually get repairable. So repairable weapons, which are the thing that I like least about Ironsight, allow you to use them until they become permanently damaged. So along the way, you'll actually see a health bar for repairable weapons, and you can repair them, get them back up to full health by using your in-game currency, the cash, which is also what you want to save up to actually buy new weapons. I don't like that crossover. I get why it's there, and I think if I played more of the game, I'd have a better decision, a better thought process on whether or not it's fair, but it's something that just comes across to me as like, okay, I get why it's there, but anything that impedes me in my process of grinding currency to unlock weapons I want to play with seems kind of meh. I will give them a huge pat on the back, though, for allowing you to unlock attachments for the weapons simply by using the weapons. This is another huge error. Huge pet peeve of mine when it comes to free-to-play shooters. They treat attachments, optics, things that are vital, very integral to the gameplay as like premium currency purchases. And I'm like, no, I don't want to have to pay to keep a red dot sight. If you want to give me a cosmetic variant like Ironsight does, cool. But I should be able to unlock all of these physical gameplay effective attachments by just using the weapons. And Ironsight totally does that. The one thing I want to see the game do as it moves forward into development is to further define its personality. There's bits and pieces that shine through when you look at the very high-tier, rare variants of the weapons. They have their custom animation reloads, and they also have their own custom physical models, which look beautiful. And it's those models that blend well with the sort of Korean aesthetic, the developers are Korean, of the game. It has that very Asian inspiration to it, if you will, and I like that. You know, it's cool. There's just a nice Eastern vibe to a lot of that stuff, but it doesn't exist throughout the experience as a whole. And a lot of the maps are right now are a bit sterile. Again, they don't have like some rough edges on them. They aren't being brought to life. I'd love to see them just push the game in that direction a little bit more, create a bit more of an identity for it. They have started doing that with some of the premium cosmetic characters you can unlock. Some of the gear that you get in the game is pretty cool. All in all, Ironsight's actually really kick-ass, but it has one huge problem. I'm not here to talk about like, oh, it needs some balancing, they need to work on netcode. All of that aside, I think the gameplay is really great for the most part. All of that aside, it's a boots-on-the-ground, first-person Twitch shooter. I don't actually think there's a market for that type of game anymore. At least the market that's there is very small, especially on the PC side of things. You see, Call of Duty World War II, in my opinion, sold well because it was Call of Duty, and people are still dedicated to the Call of Duty brand. But another game could have came out and did exactly the same things, maybe even better, not flying the Call of Duty flag, and it would have sold terribly. People don't actually want to play this boots-on-the-ground stuff. It's not what the crowd is looking for. It might be when we talk about Fortnite and Battle Royale, but that's because that's a completely different genre. When we talk about the Twitch shooter, I don't know what people want right now. I think in general, small, like map-based Twitch shooters, whether they're high mobility or boots on the ground, aren't selling right now because they're just not in. People aren't interested in them. People have moved on to other things. And I think in order for these sorts of games to continue to exist going forward, something either has to happen with the interest of gamers or something has to happen within the genre itself to allow it to evolve and to become something new that feels fresh and spectacular again. Because as good as Ironsight will ever get, it can be the best Twitch, boots-on-the-ground focused shooter ever, I don't see it being able to sustain a large audience. A part of me would love to see these sorts of games get back to a point where they can have even 50, 60, 70,000 players concurrent, but I just don't know if that's going to happen. You know, you really need to do something to define yourself, to stand out from the games that have existed over the last 10 plus years now. Rainbow Six Siege has done that by being Rainbow Six Siege, a very hardcore, squad-focused, team play-focused, destruction-focused experience, right? I think it's the reason we see games like Halo not doing spectacularly well. I think it's the reason we see a game like Titanfall 2 not doing spectacularly well. It has nothing to do with this game being high mobility, that game being low mobility. It has everything to do with just the basic concept of a Twitch shooter. They've been around for so long. We need something to redefine them, something to say, hey, what's new about this? Why should I play this over Fortnite? Why should I play this over this more recent trend, this more recent genre explosion that I'm having a lot of fun with right now? Something needs to stand out and grab people again and bring them back to the table. Ironsight, unfortunately, isn't doing any of that. Call of Duty Black Ops 4 claims to be doing some innovative things in that space, and I guess we'll have to see if they can actually innovate within the genre that they helped make popular. Time will tell. That all being said, if Ironsight looks cool to you and you like classic boots in the ground Twitch gunplay, I strongly recommend you play it. It's freaking amazing. It's free to play. It's not going to cost you a penny. Get some friends together and give it a go. It's a hell of a lot of fun. I personally still enjoy these types of games, especially in smaller doses. I could play this for 3 or 4 hours one day, set it down, come back to it a week later, and I've had a really good time with it. There's a lot of good stuff to sort of dig into in Ironsight, and I think you'll genuinely enjoy it if you still have an interest for this kind of shooter. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.
You have been brought here for a purpose, the most important task of your lives.